My name is Molly Radonich, and I will be taking you through the Transformational Leadership chapter in the Leadership Theory and Practice book that we are using. So a brief overview of what this PowerPoint will explain to you today. So I'll just give a quick explanation and summary of the theory from the book and the article I found, and then an observation of the theory in my life, another leader, and then a historic leader, and then the strengths and weaknesses of this theory and things to be aware of when you're applying it, and then some recommendations for application from both the book and from my point of view. So Transformational Leadership Explained, in the book, it defines transformational leadership as a process that changes and transforms people. So it kind of relates to the deep change that we talked about earlier. It involves the people in the organization and not just what they can do for the organization. So it kind of helps to meet the goals and the visions of the whole team, as well as change kind of how they are able to view themselves as employees and view what they can do in a higher regard. So some characteristics of this: it has an emphasis on intrinsic motivation and follower development. So it really wants to work with the employees, get to know them, who they are, to be able to motivate them intrinsically and not just feel like they're being forced to do it because they're getting a paycheck. And then follower development, so really just building the team members up as employees and then as individual people, so helping them to learn and grow and figure out kind of who they are within that organization. So transformational leadership is based on visions and goals. It's setting inspiring visions and having attainable goals that people want to work towards and that they feel like they can attain. It treats people as human beings, so it's not just you have 5 employees working for you to achieve this goal. It's you have these 5 people that you get to learn with and grow with and kind of understand how you fit in with each other in order to make this goal attainable. And then it values emotions and high standards. So it really wants to incorporate the people who are on the team. It wants to incorporate their values and how they're feeling throughout the process. And then it holds the employees to a higher standard, just to really be able to exemplify their behavior. And when they do reach it, it kind of gives them confidence, like, oh, I didn't think I could do that, but I was able to achieve it. So some factors of transformational leadership set down by both the book and the article that I read. There's kind of a few different aspects of it. Starting off, Bennis and Nonis created 4 strategies of a transformational leader, so kind of some application and just kind of what it looks like. So a clear vision of the future state of the organization. That's sitting down with your team and incorporating their values into this vision, but making it easy to understand and making it attainable and making it inspirational, something that the team wants to buy into, but it also seems like something that their values align with and something that they want to achieve. Another thing is being a social architect, so really being involved with the social norms of that organization and kind of setting down a foundation for how people in the organization interact with each other. So this kind of means knowing the people in your organization to be able to know how to motivate them and kind of know how to make them feel like they fit in as part of the team. And then creating trust in organizations is key. If the followers do not have trust in the leader, nothing will get done. So just really showing them your values and that you stick to your values and you are not someone who breaks promises. You just really hold yourself to a high moral standard. so that they trust you and know that when there's a deadline to be met, you will meet it, and if you make a promise, that you will go through with that promise. So just creating trust in the organizations, and then with that, creating trust in each other, so within the fellow followers and the leader-follower dynamic. And then creative development of self has a few different aspects. One of them is continuing leadership, making sure that whatever field you are in as a leader, you are constantly learning about new ways to go about being successful in that field, and learning about kind of the changes that are happening so that you are able to adapt to those. And then another aspect of creative development of self is kind of advancing your values and how you play out your days as a leader in a positive way. So kind of what that looks like in your work day, and just really being an example for the followers for what it looks like to be a part of that organization. Coze and Posner set down some fundamental practices of transformational leaders, which is referenced in the Leadership Theory and Practice book. So the first one is to model the way. This is using your values and acting those out throughout the day, and really just being an example of what you want the social norm of the organization to look like. Setting high standards for yourself and achieving those so that your followers are motivated to kind of act as you do and hold themselves to the same high standards. The next one is inspire a shared vision. So that comes along with the vision creating process, involving your followers, but also making it something that is inspirational and something that they want to be a part of. Making it easy to understand, like we discussed on the last one, and making it something that incorporates their values so that they want to buy in on it. Challenging the process is something that looks like, or it's taking risks. It's being willing to go for that deep change, and making sure that the risks are beneficial to the company or the organization, but also challenging how the current organization functions. So if something doesn't seem to be functioning at full capacity, kind of looking at it and seeing what else can be done to make it more efficient and better for the organization. And then enabling others to act is really just knowing who you're working with and how, like, what they value and kind of how they are motivated, so that when it comes time to get them to do things, you know what kind of needs to be said and what needs to be done to make them want to be a part of this. And then encouraging the heart, this is just kind of incorporating the values of the people you are working with in order to know them and know how to kind of make them feel better about the work they're doing. So this is rewarding them for good work, and if they achieve something, if they finish a short-term goal, rewarding them in a way not that's kind of showy, but something that makes them feel like they are valued in the organization. The 4 critical competencies is an article I found in the Wall Street Journal that kind of lays out different things that transformational leaders need to be competent in and know how to do in order to successfully lead their team. So ripple intelligence is really based on the field that the organization is involved in, but it means knowing what changes are typical, being able to predict trends and change direction based on the trends that are happening. So not kind of falling behind in the norms of that field, but being able to stay up to date and being able to adapt the company and adapt the values of the company based on what is happening. So the power of doubt is kind of explained with an analogy using athletes and their nerves. So it's something that CEOs and leaders use to focus them in times, focus them in constructive ways. But when that doubt is not harnessed constructively, it can be a threat to peak performance. So that's kind of a tricky one that leaders really need to be aware of how they are using that doubt. And then authenticity is just kind of knowing your values and having self-awareness and being honest and having integrity as a leader so that the people in the company trust you, and then you make sure you're reacting authentically to problems. So when things arise that you weren't expecting, not acting reactively, but acting in a way that is true to your values and is beneficial for the team. And then balancing paradoxes, it's going to happen that you're going to face challenges as a leader, so kind of balancing the paradoxes that come up as a leader, so kind of deciding between right and right, as they put it. So the decisions are not always easy. It's not right and wrong. It's kind of which one will be more beneficial. So balancing that with personal paradoxes of decision making, things like doubt, conviction, realism, and patience, and just knowing which ones to kind of harness and which ones to let go, and make sure that you are using everything that you have to lead the company or the organization to the best of your abilities. So an observation of transfer leadership in my life as a leader, I had a position as Gatorade manager where I had 10 employees that I was in charge of. So our goal and kind of vision for the summer was to provide great service and keep the campers safe. That's the main goal of Gatorade, making sure they have correct hydration and they are staying hydrated in the hot weather. So some of the challenges with that was I didn't really get to choose the employees that I had. It was pretty much just everyone that applied got in. So we had some people who didn't want to be there, people who were lazy, and that was really difficult in terms of the group dynamic. So how I kind of applied transformational leadership, I would work extra shifts and I would help out some of the newer employees to kind of show them what we were expecting, and then I also held them to high expectations. So when they were not meeting those expectations, I would sit down with them and explain to them what needed to be done to improve their behavior and their play into the organization. And then kind of getting to know my staff so that I knew how to kind of motivate them and get them to do something that was beneficial for the team. And then the outcome, throughout the summer we had an improvement from the beginning to the end in coaches' reviews, and we started to work better as a team. And then a lot of them began to do things that they weren't told to do. So observations of a transformational leader near me, the athletic director at my high school was a really amazing person. He was a strong role model. He held his employees and students to high standards. And he really just was there not to kind of get things done, but to build relationships and kind of grow the school as a whole. So challenges with any public high school, there was a lot of student athletes who got in trouble frequently, and then he struggled with some personal health issues, as well as several deaths throughout our time at high school that he kind of had to rally the school together to support each other and kind of be able to grieve as a student body. So he held really high standards for everyone, and he just really knew the people individually, so he was able to encourage them based on their values and how they worked as a team, how they worked individually, and then for like how the school worked as a whole. And then he was always putting the school above himself. He struggled with pancreatic cancer throughout the later stages of my high school career, and he was still at work. He was still going to football games and just interacting with students regardless of his health issues. And then kind of the outcome of that transformational leadership that he showed, our school had incredible school spirit, and the school and teams really rallied around each other through the hard times that they had experienced. And then he was a really incredible figure who left an incredible legacy in our town. So on this slide, I've kind of listed out some different strengths and weaknesses, and I'll touch on a few of them that I feel are a little bit more important than others. So you can kind of take a look at those. But some of the strengths of transformational leadership is that it's widely researched. I believe from 1995 to 2000, there was 34% of the articles published in leadership were based on transformational leadership. So it is a huge part of the leadership as a whole. And it's a theory that many people have studied, and so there's lots of things to back up its reliability. So another thing about transformational leadership that is a strength is that it occurs between both followers and leaders. So it's not just a leader making all the decisions, it's the dynamic that occurs, or the dynamic that is used within that kind of team to make the best decisions for that organization. And then it has a strong emphasis on values, morals, and needs of the followers. So it's not just what's best for this organization, but it's what's best for the people that are involved in this organization. So some of the weaknesses of transformational leadership are kind of the conceptual clarity and measurement of it. They kind of play into each other, but there's not really set things that you have to do as a transformational leader to get from point A to B. It's kind of based on your team. What do you need to do to best benefit the company? And it's hard to measure. You can't say like, oh, they got from here to here in this many years. It's kind of how did the overall dynamic of the team change throughout this goal setting period, or this goal attaining period. And research, while there is a lot of research on it, it hasn't actually established a link between the success of the organization and a transformational leader. So there's a lot of similarities or connections between these two, but there isn't a link that they have been able to set throughout their research that says this theory for leadership will get you here. And then another aspect of it that I feel is kind of important is it has a potential to be abused because of the change that is occurring because of the dynamic between the leaders and followers. So it has a potential for the leader to kind of instill values and morals that are not necessarily for the good of the organization. And so it can kind of get foggy sometimes if the leader is not very aware of their intentions with the goals and visions set forward. So some recommendations for application. 2 of these are from the book, and 2 of them are my applications that I've kind of pulled from what I have read. So awareness of behavior is huge in transformational leadership. So awareness is just a key aspect of leadership in general, but making sure that what you are doing is something that you would want your followers to be doing, because they will kind of exemplify and model what you are doing as well. And then process of building a vision. So making sure that you're getting creative and you're looking at all the benefits and the downfalls of a vision, but making sure it's a positive one for the company and that you can buy into it, because if you're not going to buy into it, your followers will not buy into it, and then nothing will happen. I think it's super key to build relationship with your followers. So if you don't know them well, while some companies it's far too big to know everyone, But if you don't know the general dynamic of your organization, it will be hard to build a trust, and that trust is key in having a successful organization. And then also having a desire for deep change. I think it's almost impossible to have transformational leadership without a deep change happening in the people and in the company or the organization. So if you don't desire the deep change for yourself and for the company, the people that are working under you and are following you will not. They'll see that you don't have a true desire for that change, and they won't buy into it either. And this is a list of my references.